ChatGPT excels at debugging both of them. If you have an error message, you pretty much just plug in your code, plug in the error message, and then ChatGPT will pretty much tell you what the error is. What's up, everybody? It's DataLyfe, DataLyfe, back with another video. Today, we're going to talk about the hottest thing in tech and in AI right now, which is ChatGPT, and how I personally use it as a data scientist. So let's get right into it. And if you're watching this video and you find that this is helpful, you like it, you want to see more, please like, subscribe. It'll help the channel, it'll help me, and it'll help you get more information. So let's get into it. The main way that I use ChatGPT is going to be no surprise to you. As a data scientist, I use it a lot to write and develop code. There's a bunch of coding languages that I use. I use Spark now a lot. I use Python. I use SQL. I still use R a little bit. And you know, when you're using a bunch of different languages, you're going to always be learning new syntaxes, and you're going to be, forgetting the old ones. So when you're learning new syntaxes, it's definitely the best tool out there right now to help you learn how to code. Now, when you're coding and you know what you want to do, but you don't know how to do it, the old way to do it is to just Google it and go on Stack Overflow. And by old way, I mean like 3 months ago. But now we have ChatGPT, which is much more efficient. You just pretty much type in what you want to do, what language you want to do, and it'll generate a command. And this works really well. I've been using it a lot for PySpark because coming into this job, I hadn't really worked with Spark before. It was a new language to me. So I had to continually use ChatGPT to help me generate my code. And honestly, instead of doing, and it really was the best tool to help me learn that language faster. And I will say that after my experience, I was worried that, I would just get too reliant on ChatGPT and it would just be coding for me, but that's not the case. Instead of doing it for you, it really is a tool for you to get better at programming. I can program a lot with PySpark without ChatGPT now. It's really just the best tool out there. And then there's some examples of things that I was doing that I didn't know how to do, like in Python, how to pivot, unpivot data frames. I found out there's simple commands to do that. And currently I'm working on the data validation part of a model I'm deploying. So one of the things I had to learn how to do was compare two data frames to each other and see if they're the exact same or different. So, I asked ChatGPT how I do that, and it's showing me all these commands. How do I compare data frames to each other? And if there's differences, where are the differences? How much are they? And I can actually do that all in one simple command. Thanks, ChatGPT. Now, the second main way that I use ChatGPT, very similar to the first one, once you develop the code, now there's debugging the code. Now, there's two types of errors you get in code, and ChatGPT is great with both of them. One of them is like a syntax error, which pretty much means that, you enter in a code and it shoots back an error to you. And the second one is a logical error, where there's actually no error, like the Python's not going to spit an error message back to you, but the output is not what you want it to be. And ChatGPT excels at debugging both of them. If you have an error message, you pretty much just plug in your code, plug in the error message, and then ChatGPT will pretty much tell you what the error is, what the error means, and how you can solve that and give you new code for that. And of course, ChatGPT isn't 100% right all the time. It's not Jesus, but it is a very good tool, and it really has saved me on like dozens, hundreds of hours now. And of course, ChatGPT isn't 100% correct all the time, but I feel like it's pretty close to it, and it does really well, and it has saved me countless hours, every single week debugging code. And this week, I actually had some errors that would have taken me a little bit longer to figure out that were, so frustratingly simple when I figured out that answer, but they were logic errors pretty much, where I was, entering in code right here just to rename a column, and then I was not getting the result that I wanted to, and ChatGPT was helping me get the result that I needed to get. And even this week in my code, I was having a lot of logical errors that were very frustrating because I knew it was something very small, like it's always something real small. It's just annoying me, and I couldn't figure out what it was, and I was able to use ChatGPT to help me get the right output. I was literally just trying to change column names on a data frame, and it just wasn't working out. ChatGPT was able to help me do that. Thank you again, GPT. And the most helpful the debugging is for me is actually when I'm creating tables in a theta. Athena does have like a table creator, but I don't have that much background in creating tables in Athena. And the table creator just generates code for you. But if you don't really understand what you're doing, you're gonna like use the table creator wrong. It's gonna generate the wrong code. And what I actually found is better sometimes is just use ChatGPT to generate the table DDLs and create the table that way. And if there was an error in the table that I had created with the table maker, I'll just take the code that it spit out and I'll put it in ChatGPT and say, hey, what's wrong with this code? ChatGPT would help me out that way, because that is code that I'm very unfamiliar with, and ChatGPT helped me out with that. Again, countless hours were saved using ChatGPT, countless. Now, the third main way that I use ChatGPT as a data scientist is just asking it technical questions. Yo, ChatGPT, what is this? How do I use this? What does this mean? Just asking it technical questions. Now, of course, the best way to actually get information on a subject you don't know is still to Google it, or to, look at other resources on the web, because, it's much more extensive. There's a lot more knowledge out on the web than, just what ChatGPT is going to give you. But if you have a question where you want a straightforward answer with some background, ChatGPT is your tool, and that's the best way. And that's exactly what I need a lot of times I just have a quick question. Hey, like, what is this? What is the difference between parquet and delta, like things like that. I just need a quick answer. I put it in ChatGPT, and then I get my answer with some backgrounds, and it explains it for you. And that's what I need like 90% of the time. Some of the things that I've looked up recently is, best practices for validating data in S3 and Athena. Like I said, I'm working on data validations right now. It's helped me fix memory issues in Spark when I'm working in Databricks and I'm running the Spark memory issues. And I'm like, okay, what do I do now? What is the best way that I can actually get this code to run, because my memory is filling up? ChatGPT was able to give me suggestions on that subject, and other conceptual things like, I'm starting off, when I first started again learning Spark, I would ask like, why is it better to use Spark versus Python? Like, what's the differences between having your data in a Spark data frame and running it with Spark commands than having it in a Pandas data frame and running it with Pandas commands? And they gives you a lot of good information on that to get you started, to get you understand what's going on. And then of course, if you really want to dig deeper into it and understand a lot more, then you have to Google it and go on websites and expand your knowledge that way. And I've had many conversations with my friends, but like for most of what you want, the questions you want, ChatGPT is going to be a better Google, and for the average person, maybe not a data scientist, but data scientist too, when you're just Googling questions, Googling things, a lot of times it'll be just more efficient to do it in ChatGPT, because a lot of people just want, here's my question, I want the answer just right there. I don't want to search through a bunch of different websites or a bunch of different things. I want my answer just right there, and ChatGPT does a great job of that. And of course, disclaimer, of course, ChatGPT isn't always 100% accurate, but man, it's pretty good, man. It is pretty good. And the last thing that I wanted to talk about that I use ChatGPT for is kind of my miscellaneous category, but it really falls under the category of just time saving. Like, ChatGPT is a huge time saver. One of the time saving things that ChatGPT did for me was, converting code from one language to the other. That's a really, really neat thing that it can do. There's not that many other programs that do that well, but I have large NFL models that I run that were originally written in R that, I wanted to start running with Python, because my local environment just runs Python much better. The R setup isn't that great. It's kind of wacky and funky like R is sometimes. So I moved that code over to Python, and instead of me having to go through and like recode it, ChatGPT was able to just translate the language from R to Python just like that. And it worked almost flawlessly. I can't recall correctly, but like it worked really, really well. I just had to adjust some things, but man, I'm telling you that probably like maybe 10 hours at least that saved me from having to convert one model from one language to the other. And there's another small little thing that I do all the time, which is, people will always send me files for like ad hoc requests, and the file will be like, hey, can you check out, these things? And they all have like IDs in them. I'll like take the column, I'll cut the column, and I'll paste in ChatGPT, and I'll be like, hey, can you get all these elements, but put them in a list that can be put in Python code or in a SQL query, because, if I'm looking for certain things in the database and I have to search for each ID, I have to put them all in like a list in a SQL query, and I'll just take that column from you, Excel and be like, hey, can you put this, in a list that I can just cut and paste and put in a SQL query, and ChatGPT will just do it like that very quickly. Same thing for when I want to put in Python code, and that is a real big, like small things like that save me so much time. It saved me so much time. And of course, things like summarizing documents. If there's a long document, you should probably read the whole thing. You probably should. But sometimes I'm like, yo, I know ChatGPT can just summarize this, so yo, how about you do that, and then I'll save me some time. So ChatGPT is also really good at summarizing documents, and I use it for that.